Hey folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. Subscribe to Mike Messier YouTube channel here on the Monte and the Pharaoh YouTube channel. Subscribe to everyone, folks. And I'm here on location. It's late night, it's dark, and I'm a little bit late with this report, but I'm on the road. I'm several thousand miles from home. But AEW had a strong week this week, folks. But first, I did see a very sad thing. Jim Ross tweeted out apparently today that he has been diagnosed with skin cancer. I don't know the extent to that. It does strike close home to me because Jim Ross and I both live in Jacksonville, Florida. Jim Ross bought a second home there because he does so much work for AEW, and they were doing so much stuff in Jacksonville during this worldwide situation. So Jim Ross, thinking about good old JR and so forth. So I just put that out there, but put a little message in your hearts for good old JR. Now, what should we talk about here with AEW? I mean, I could give you a match-by-match review. Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon, looks to be fully reinvigorated. I mean, by my standards of excellence, it seems like Daniel Bryanson has got a fountain of youth. Like, he just looks like he's reinvigorated. He's growing his hair out. He's having harder hitting matches. I mean, you tell me, but Bryan Danielson versus Suzuki on that that Rampage pre-show or whatever on YouTube versus the typical, Bryan Danielson versus The Miz match or whatever, or even a Bryan Danielson versus AJ Styles match, although those were terrific, outstanding matches. But the WWE has such a style, a homogenized style, really more so in the promos over at WWE. If you listen to WWE promos, folks, how many times you hear them say, tonight in that ring or tonight in this very ring? It's just very annoying to listen to the modern day WWE promos because they're so alike. The wrestlers' personalities have a hard time coming through. There's a few that do a good job with it, or they have heavy accents, like a Becky Lynch sounds a little bit better. I know she's not a great promo, but because she sounds different, it sounds unique. But I think one thing about AEW, I was discussing this with a friend of mine today, is that AEW, it feels looser. It's not as tight. It's not as produced. Now, for some folks, maybe younger fans, that grew up in the WWE, say post-2000, 2001, if all you've known is WWE wrestling your whole life, anything other than WWE is going to seem odd or unusual or less than. But if you're an old fuck like myself and you remember the territory days and how AWA had a certain vibe and how world-class wrestling had a certain vibe, and how the Georgia territories and everything, these different territories had different feelings, different vibes, different styles, different flavors, okay? Like, you could watch Mid-South wrestling and you'd seen stuff like the Junkyard Dog or Ted DiBiase, a younger Ted DiBiase. Then you flip over and you see Memphis wrestling. Well, it's just crazier. The Fireballs and the Mid-South Coliseum and Lance Russell, on commentary, and all the Jimmy Hart First Family stuff. Now, for the fans that grew up, and these are probably people in their 30s now or younger, that have just mostly been exposed to WWE, and if maybe a tinge of Impact Wrestling, which, TNA Impact, which a lot of times was kind of a soundstage thing. You're not used to seeing different styles of wrestling. You're not used to seeing this death match between Nick Gage and, Chris Jericho. You're not used to seeing all these Japanese wrestlers coming in for a match or two and leaving. So it's all very foreign and difficult for you to grab this thing, that there's some wrestling out there that's not WWE and not trying to be WWE. I mean, I think that a lot of times, even independent wrestling shows, sometimes they try too hard to be, as people would say, WWE light, or featuring former WWE talent, or, you know what I mean? If you've ever gone to an independent wrestling show, and if you see the poster advertising the show, and most of it's just saying, well, this one is Carlito, and here's Brutus Beefcake, and they're just telling you all the wrestlers that used to wrestle for WWE. Well, AEW is trying to do something different, and I know some of you fucks are going to hop in and say, oh, well, Daniel Bryan's from WWE, and CM Punk's from WWE, and Chris Jericho and Moxley, and blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. But Darby Allin, once again, I said this a few weeks ago, Darby Allin's not from WWE. Jungle Boy was never in WWE. You know what I mean? Jade Cargill, Hobbs, Powerhouse Hobbs. So we go back to that. This, however, I don't want to talk about exact talent. I want to talk about styles of wrestling, styles of presentation. Like I said, the looseness of AEW. The one thing that they do, which I disagree with in AEW, they have a roster that's probably twice as big as they need it. With Rampage and Dark Elevation and all these like supplemental shows, they're trying to give all these wrestlers work, as they say, and I just don't know if that's necessarily helping. Okay, I've got to go. I'll talk to you later.